Hi there and welcome to B Shifter. John Vance here. On this episode, Josh Blum, Doug Wehmeyer, and myself will talk about accountability on the fireground on the task, tactical, and strategic level. We'll also discuss accountability tools that work and some that only seem to distract us. So let's get the conversation going here on B Shifter. Accountability, keeping track of where our folks are. And there's different levels of that. I think so often it gets misinterpreted how it should run. Before we started rolling tape here, we were talking about, the roll calls and the accountability officers and the old way of doing things. There's much more to it than that. And when it all works in concert with each other, it really fills in the gaps on accountability without eating up a lot of radio time while tracking personnel. So where do we start with accountability on the fireground?
So first off, accountability is a system, much like RIT. And I'm not going to go off on that, but RIT is the capability of everybody on the fireground. It's the entire system. It is not any one company. It's no one person, none of that. So the accountability piece, along through time has gotten all muddied up with, we have this accountability system and it's this computer. Or we have this accountability system and it's this iPad that tracks something, or it's this device that's connected to our air pack that does accountability. It's a computer that's connected to our air pack and somebody sits there and looks at this. And when somebody doesn't move, that's accountability. And it's like, maybe those are all components to the system, but true accountability is back to the entire system. So we'll start at the level we have on every incident, task level. So task level accountability. Company officer responsible for voice, vision, and touch, round trip ticket mentality. If you're going in, you're responsible to make sure they get out. Really with accountability, I think air management ties into it, that the company officer needs to make sure that we're doing air management. And today, I think that's, for company officers today, that's easier than ever because our, the new standards with air packs and everything, I can see what's going on with somebody else's air. I can see what's going on with my personnel's air. And it's in their face too. They can see, what's going on with it. So that's a training component with the whole air management piece. So maintaining voice, vision, touch, task level, accountability, round trip ticket mentality. The moving parts that are connected to that, if you use a, traditional standard accountability type system with passports or tags or something, that company needs to make sure that one, that passport is accurate, the tags are accurate. If you're using some kind of electronic tagging system, that indeed those tags are accurate, that if Josh Blum's the lieutenant on the truck today, that the tag doesn't say John Vance or, whatever it is. And, I'm not a big fan of all the electronic shit because I've yet to see it where it really works. I've seen it a whole lot of times where we get frustrated with it and we just start pushing the button. This firefighter Smith isn't moving, reset it. Firefighter Jones isn't moving, reset it. Firefighter whoever isn't moving, reset it. And, Houston got to see that in multiple different fires, that person assigned accountability is like, there was like 25, 30, 50, I don't know, whatever the number is, activations. And then we hear it from other organizations that are using something like that. And it's like, it's not really the answer. Electronics doesn't solve our problem, and I'm going to hit this, and we'll probably spin out and go into another place with it. But we always try to solve why problems with what solutions. So the whole accountability, I got an idea. The idea is we're going to have this thermal imaging camera that tracks, devices on air packs, and I can see people inside. And it's like, how about this? How about we don't put ourselves into those positions where we have to feel like I have this device that I can find a fireman easier because it tracks down and it has this accountability component connected to it. And when I look at John Vance's air pack, coat, tag, whatever, it's like, oh, that's John Vance. And it's like, we've complicated this blue collar job to the point that we're starting to see, I think, some repercussions from some of those things. And I think they're all great. And some of it, I'm sure, is a training and education piece because we buy something and it's this new whiz-bangetry thing and we're going to put it on the truck, but we don't spend the time really exercising it and training on it to see how it works. A piece of that is the whole radios. We got 6,000, I don't know how much ever a radio is. And it's like, we use like 1% of the real capability of the radio. And, just recently I heard, we're buying these new radios and it's got this GPS tracking thing in there and we're going to be able to track. And I'm like, How about we use what the real capability of the radio is already? I mean, this group we're with this week, they said, yeah, when you push, if you push the Mayday button, which is in our policy, depending on what talk group you're on, everybody's going to end up on a different channel. And it's like, that could be solved pretty goddamn easily in one day with some simple programming and an adult discussion. But, you know, we've tried to make it something and it's not. So, that's just the task level piece. So we're back to this whole passports. I lost it for a second. We use passports with name tags. So that passport name tag starts to get tracked at the fire attack location. And the fire attack location is typically a fire apparatus that's on that side of the building where we're going to initiate a fire attack. So companies drop their passport on that board in that geographic area. 2001, 2, 3, Phoenix was talking about, you know, hanging passports on discharges on fire trucks, tagging hand lines, what companies were there. Well, now it's, you know, 2022 and, you know, we can do some similar things, except for we've gotten, most of our industry, I think, has gotten to the point where we have color coded hand lines. So it's pretty easy. Engine 7 stretched a blue hand line. Well, this is Engine 7's passport. It's on this board. And I just write on there, they stretched a blue hand line. It's pretty simple. And the value of that really is priceless when you need to know, is Engine 7 on the blue hand line, the orange hand line, or the red hand line when something does go sideways. So that goes back to the, you know, one of our lines of you got to be doing everything right when something goes wrong. The companies have delivered their passports to that attack location, and everybody needs to bring their passports forward, put them on that board, and it's a gathering place. And at that point, we really don't have much of a tactical level accountability. It's the start of the process. So the next part of accountability where we really end up on the fire ground is the strategic level piece of accountability, which is the strategic ICs arriving. When they pull up, they make sure we're in the correct strategy. And then they catch up with tactical worksheets. So strategic ICs track accountability. They write that down on some sort of a document. If you got a driver, that's even better. Fantastic. It just makes it that much easier. Somebody can, you know, write it down probably while you're en route. But you catch up that tactical worksheet. So strategic ICs track position and function of units on the strategic IC tactical worksheet. The next part of it, they're just going to call on the radio and verify with the mobile IC who's currently command the position and function of those units on the fire ground, make sure that it's accurate so that when they're transferring command, they're actually in command of something. Because just like a lot of Don Abbott's data shows, just because a chief was there doesn't mean they were in command of shit. It's that old, like, I've arrived and I'm in charge. And it's like, well, good for you. You wear a white shirt and you're wearing a white helmet, standing in the front yard with a portable radio with no microphone on it. You're a idiot. So you're not in charge of anything.
Yeah.
Your strategic ICs worked in a fixed command location. They document on a tactical worksheet. That is true strategic level accountability. Once they've verified, you know, all of that, now they are indeed in command. And then they continue to do strategic level accountability by, when they assign companies, they're tracking that. And then we, in Blue Card, use, you know, some terminology. So we use that terminology status change to track when companies have finished an assignment or when they're going to change location. So even in our area, we got some really good examples from Coleraine Township of their ladder company doing searches. So they've gotten really good at it, and they are really good at it. Ladder 25, primary search complete on the first floor. We're going to the second floor. People are like, well, that's stupid. You're inside of a house. Why does anybody need to know? Well, they need to know, and they need to know for the purpose of ladder 25. So that when ladder 25 says Mayday, 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 they know where they are now. Not on the first floor, they're on the second floor. But that's the continuing part of accountability. If we're not solving the problem very quickly and we end up pushing a tactical boss forward, we end up with tactical level accountability. So what that looks like is, we're just going to say that the tactical boss is going to be assigned to Alpha. There's 4 companies working there. And command says, Battalion 7, I'm making you Alpha. Let me know when you're in place. Battalion 7 takes a little bit of time. They get fully dressed, wearing all their PPE. They take their board with them. They go to the attack location. I'm at the engine now. I talk to the pump operator. They give me as much information as they can of who is where, what line they're working on, and maybe even what time they made entry, which isn't hard to do. You know, if we put a clock or, you know, whatever on that board where we start to put those passports, even if it's off by a couple of minutes, it's better than not having any idea how long companies had been working. And now the tactical boss puts those passports on their tactical board. And, we've simplified the whole tactical board thing with the passports. We got a 2-sided board. It's red and yellow. Red side is inside, yellow side is outside. On deck, we got some basic reminders on there. And the tactical board has a little clock on it too, so that you can keep track of time, really for the purpose of air management. So that just helps you with the whole forecasting piece of the rotation. So the work rest cycle of crews. So how long can I really have a company work? How long is it going to take them to recycle? That's really starting to get into, a whole another level of accountability. So the battalion has those passports, they're in place, and they're going to keep up their radio. Battalion 7 to command, I'm in Alpha. Give them a rundown of the companies that they have, that they know they have the passports for. The strategic IC is going to look at their worksheet and be like, yep, okay, that's who you have. Let me know if you need anything else. And your assignment is fire control, primary search of the building. Whatever that assignment is, objective based off critical fire ground factors. And then the tactical boss has it. So at that point, we have 3 levels of accountability. The task level, the company officer never stops doing voice, vision, and touch, round trip ticket mentality. They're responsible for the people on their company. The tactical level, responsible for those companies, and really they're tracking companies, though the passport has the name on it. The name doesn't matter as much as the number of people on the company does. Like if engine 7 comes out and the passport's got 4 names on it, 4 people better come out. And if 4 people don't come out, we're going to ask a question to the company officer of where's your 4th person. And then the strategic IC continues to track and do that 30,000 foot view accountability of what's going on. So they have the task level, the tactical level, and strategic level, and all those other companies that are still maybe level 1 or level 2 stage. So they're tracking everything that's going on in the fire ground. And so sometimes we get the question about, when does a company that's working for a tactical boss, when does the tactical boss tell the strategic IC company status, inside, outside, what's going on? And my answer is never. I mean, once the strategic IC gives the tactical boss a geographic area and assigns companies to them, those companies now work for the geographic boss and the tactical boss, and they are responsible for those resources. So the only thing the strategic IC knows and has on this tactical worksheet sitting in the car is engine 7, 11, 19, and 24 are all working for Alpha, and I just have them in a circle that is in a geographic area. I'm responsible for them in the big picture, but really the tactical boss is there and is responsible for them. So they're going to answer for those companies throughout the entire event. The only time that they really come back to the strategic IC as far as the companies is if I'm going to send somebody to rehab. Rehab is indeed an assignment. So the tactical boss would, if I'm going to send engine 7 to rehab, the tactical boss would just tell command, I'm sending engine 7 to rehab. I give them their passport. They take their passport to rehab, and they don't get released from rehab until rehab tells command, okay, I'm releasing engine 7 back to you. And then command has them again. They don't go back to the sector division. Command has them to use as a resource, just like if they were in level 1 staging. I think that was a lot, but that's kind of the gist of accountability, a scratch in the surface of it.
I think there's an important thing to note that we're all involved in. We all work in a suburb of an urban, older city area with 3-4 station departments. That process needs to be interoperable if we're doing auto aid, mutual aid with other companies. So how do we get to the point where that system is interchangeable? Because none of us live in a vacuum, man. If you've just got 5 or 6 companies on duty, you're going to need auto aid. You're going to need mutual aid. How do we make that all line up?
Well, I think and you and I talked about it a little bit earlier today when we were teaching. The benefit, or the first way we do that is the fire chiefs at the fire chiefs meetings need to make that policy. And that needs to be universal across the county. And then if you take, one of the departments I work for, we're sitting on the county line of 3 different counties. So what works for me in Warren County has to also work when I go to Butler County and when I go to Hamilton County and when I go to Claremont County. And the amazing thing to me is I was thinking, as Josh was talking and he mentioned Colerain, the first place I did accountability was in Colerain in 1994. And the passports we're using today and the tags we're using today and the colors on the tags we're using today haven't changed. It's the same system since 1994. And that's good. There's not a problem with that. I think fail or have failed in the fire service is I was trying to remember how many times I've been trained on how to use that system. We hired a new guy. Hey, kid, your tag goes here. Don't mess with it. Don't touch it. This is the officer will take care of it. And he doesn't know why he's doing that. He doesn't know where that goes. He doesn't know when he gets it back. And as Josh mentioned, there's plenty of electronic systems that are out there for that. The last thing I want in the command post when I'm running this incident is another thing making noise, right? My NBC is updating every time somebody's going on scene. I hopefully have the advantage of having a support officer there. Maybe my boss arrives on scene later and I've got a senior advisor that's there and their phones are going to ring. Other stuff's going to happen, but I don't want to be paying attention to a computer screen telling me someone's not moving when I'm watching them walk across the second floor of a building. We've got a great system in the passports and the tags and the Velcro, in the metal boards that Josh just mentioned for the division supervisor to use. We've got a great system there. We just need to train, and we all need to do the same thing. And it's funny because he mentioned, we have a radio system that can track it. It can do this, and we're using 1% of it. There's departments now that have a passport that's the size of a steno pad because they're now tracking what radio that guy has too. Well, the radio tracks itself. The radio will tell you that that's engine 1 firefighter B's portable declaring an emergency. I don't need to know it's radio 73115211. And now my passport's bigger because I had to put that on an orange tag to put that with the guy's name. And back to what we were saying before, as we were talking earlier, we have the helmet fronts. Well, my organizations have gone away from the helmet fronts. We're using them on the air bottles. So we have and I think you said the same thing. We have the chest strap that says engine 59. We have the back of the pack that says engine 59. And I'm not looking at helmets and seeing 4 people come up that says Tower 1, Medic 1, and Quint 1, right? And that's 4 guys on the same crew because that day they were primarily riding on Medic 1 and they put Medic 1's tag on the front of the helmet. But if we have the Mayday or we're evacuating people from a building and I'm watching a crew come out and I'm watching for everybody to come off of Tower 1 and only 1 guy comes out, but I know I had 4 guys from Tower 1 in there, I'm looking at face pieces or leather helmet fronts that don't match Tower 1, right? So let's all get together. Let's put systems in place. Let's follow universal policies that deal with the region, not just the county. Let's make sure our passports are correct. And again, that's our ability. That's our way to track people. We've gotten to the point sometimes that accountability overruns the incident, that we're spending so much time, so much radio traffic trying to run a par or trying to figure out who was where, right? We would know that if we had the passport that was taken to the tactical location where the tactical boss is working and he has that on his board, right? As Josh mentioned, the IC is sitting in the car on an incident action plan, writing down who's where. And once he's assigned a tactical boss to Division 3 or a tactical boss to Charlie, he doesn't need to worry about those crews anymore. He's still worried about the ones that he had on the other side. Accountabilities, to me, is really probably one of the easiest things we could do in the fire service. And we spend so much time talking about it. Again, we're 30 years into this and still trying to figure out how we're going to do it.
Doug hit on a huge myth I'd love to bust, and I don't know if you guys have studied it much, but it's these 10-minute lapse time notifications where then an accountability officer gets on and starts doing roll call every 10 minutes. And if you're in a system where you're counting on your survivability to be checked on every 10 minutes, how long can you hold your breath? Yeah. How long can you survive inside an IDLH? It's certainly not 10 minutes. I don't know where we got that time from. Let's talk about that myth a little bit.
Well, one, when people are using that system, they have a total 100% reactionary accountability system. It is not proactive. Our accountability system is proactive. It's the company officer. You have to do your job. You have to be accountable for your people. Voice, vision, touch. Strategic ICs track position and function of companies at every single move. The biggest place inside of the IDLH environment. We track companies in the warm zone, and beyond that, don't really worry so much. But far too often, this whole PAR roll call report thing, and it pisses me off every single time, and I got a little clip on here, then we can listen to it, and I'm good with that. 2.5 minutes for a roll call, and at the end of it, the accountability officer says, anybody who we didn't call, identify yourself.
Accountability, all companies on the fire car piece. If we cover all companies, any company not called, sign on.
And I said, well, here's a perfect example of the incident is running. There is no incident command anyway. I mean, they say they're in command. They ain't in command to nothing. And there ain't no accountability either because you have no idea what's going on. And it took you 2.5 minutes. And the first companies that they call are companies that aren't even inside the IDLH. They don't even know where anybody's at. Well, our system is current to every single moment, to every single transmission, to every single assignment, to all the companies operating in the IDLH. That's how it's robust. But people get it wrapped around the accountability thing that it's some board that I'm going to make you accountability, and you got your vest and your white helmet standing in the front yard with 30 tags on it, and your accountability because for whatever reason I had to make you that. But and I'm not sure where we got sideways with that because that was the system that we use came from Phoenix Fire Department, really, in Seattle, mixed into it a little bit, and maybe some California, San Diego area, San Francisco. Maybe I'm mixing those two up, but that's where the system came from. Like Doug said, I think 30 something years ago. I mean, the system in our region in the Midwest definitely came from Phoenix. I mean, that's where it came from. Cole Raines, fire chief, then Bruce Smith brought it to our region and said, this is the accountability system. And it was really never this accountability officer with all these passports and all these things. It kind of just evolved to that, which really comes back to the training thing. And I can count on one hand easily any formal training prior to Blue Card that I ever had on accountability. Put your passport on the truck. At some point, some guy might show up with their board and pull these passports off, and they end up with a board full of all these passports, and it don't mean shit to nobody. So it's this 100% reactionary thing, and we hear it all the time. The whole PAR roll call piece, whatever, and it's like, well, if somebody's not accounted for or they're missing, mayday, mayday, mayday. And I challenge people like go find that incident where you did this whole roll call. You're accounting for people, right? And in history, there's been some collapse stuff where it's like, oh, when there's a catastrophic event, you go to this truck and the passports are still going to be there and you're going to be able to see who's there and all that horseshit because the passport has yesterday's crew on it because we don't use it all the time and it's not a living thing on the fire ground. It's reactive.
Well, and I think that the part of it, and I'll be the first to admit I'm guilty of this. I was so against having an accountability officer assigned and that person eating radio traffic and doing everything else that, we have been using in my area. We have been using division supervisors for quite some time and they're tracking their crews. Now, were we doing that on a board? No, we weren't. And the accountability passport was brought to the incident commander, and the worst thing for me is rolling down that window every 30 seconds and sticking my hand out to grab a passport from somebody else. But I did it, right? I played the game and I did it. And I had no value in that because I was tracking those on my tactical, worksheet, right? And then what did that company officer see? He saw me take that passport and throw it in the dash of my pickup, right? I toss it in there. So now I'm telling them how important accountability is. Right. I was on the verge of disciplining company officers for not having accurate passports in their truck. I would go around to all 4 stations. It became that big of a deal to check and make sure it was right. But then when they're bringing it to me, I throw it in the dashboard of the truck and, probably rolled my eyes. They probably seen that, and because there wasn't a good way in place in our region for what we do with those passports at the command level. And I think we have that now. We put them on the vehicle. We put them on the first engine, first ladder, whatever it's going to be, the first quint on scene in that region of the building, right? Alpha, Charlie, wherever we're making that point. It's on engine 1. And then when we assigned Battalion 2 to go to the second floor and become Division 2, and you're going to have engine 1, engine 2, and engine 3 working for you, he goes to that truck and gets them. There's a value in that, and everyone sees it. And then, that's accountability. That's tracking our stuff. Putting stuff in a dashboard of a vehicle doesn't do anything for us.
I was at a conference years ago where a department that had significant line of duty death incident happened. And the chief from there said, if you're doing roll call, it's the roll call of the dead. And that made goosebumps stand up on the back of my neck, because it was like, man, there's I've always had that feeling, but here's a guy who's been through it and he knows. So best practice, we've got you covered. If you're interested in more, you can certainly contact us at Blue Card, and we'd be happy to pass that info on to you. Well, thanks so much for listening to this B-Shifter on accountability. Make sure to subscribe, tell your friends, leave a review, or reach out to any of us with questions, comments, or topics that you'd like to see us cover. Until next time, thanks so much for listening to B-Shifter.